Won 4-2 last night behind David Price. And Pat, David Price has an impact even when he's not on the mound. That was a big win last night for these next two starters, Marco Estrada and Marcus Stroman.
I agree 100%. You know what it does is it takes the pressure off of everybody else when you win game one. This is a lot like the series the Blue Jays just played at Yankee Stadium. David Price threw in game one there. He won that one. Marco Estrada went out and pitched game two in that series. The first game of that doubleheader, he ended up winning that ball game for the Blue Jays. I think David Price's feelings on the rotation is he takes a lot of pressure off of everybody. One other thing to consider that we watched tonight, for Marco Estrada, he has made 25 starts this year, just 4 of them. Just 4 times he's thrown 100 pitches and then won the next game. Last time out, he was masterful against Atlanta, but he only threw 99 pitches in winning that ball game.
So we'll take a look at the lineup facing Marco Estrada. The Yankees last night, we mentioned they had just 2 runs on 5 hits against Price in the bullpen. Brett Gardner, over his last 8 games, it's been a struggle. Just 3 for his last 31. That's an .097 batting average with 7 strikeouts. And then 22-year-old Greg Bird, the rookie's got a 6-game history. He hit a laser shot over the wall in center field in last night's game in the 9th inning. He's got 7 home runs already in his young career, and he's a good-looking young hitter. And he will look at Marco Estrada tonight.
A tough lineup that the Yankees will throw out there, and the Blue Jays are going to go with Marco Estrada. Marco gets ready for his 26th start of the season. That is a career high. He has pitched against the Yankees a lot, 25 career innings against New York. He's allowed 7 home runs, including 5 in his last 2 starts, but he was masterful in his last start at Atlanta. 4th outing without allowing a run. 8 innings, no earned runs allowed. That's 2 earned runs or less in 16 of his 25 starts this year. He has been outstanding.
Defensively behind Estrada, it has been very good all season long. It got a lot better when Ben Revere took over and left. Kevin Pillar's in center. Jose Bautista's in right. Josh Donaldson has committed 18 errors this season at third. Goins and Munenori Kawasaki up the middle. Justin Smokes at first, and Guiana Navarro will handle Marco Estrada tonight.
7th start at second base for Munenori Kawasaki. In fact, all of his starts have come at second base this season for the Blue Jays. His last one, August the 1st versus Kansas City. If you remember that, that was the day game after a night game where Troy Tulowitzki got the afternoon off.
Estrada is set. Ellsbury's in the box. Here's the first pitch of the ball game. It is off the plate outside for a ball. 19 degrees. The roof is open. It's been a gorgeous afternoon and early evening here in Toronto. Ellsbury rips it down the right field line. That's going to go into the corner. Bautista will dig it out. Ellsbury aboard quickly with a leadoff double. He swung the bat well all night last night, had a couple of hits and lined out to the pitcher.
Hit the ball hard 3 times in last night's ball game against David Price. He's not going to wait around this time against Marco Estrada. This is a fastball. It's only 87 miles an hour, and it's over the middle of the plate. It looked like they wanted that one down and in. It stayed over the middle. And Ellsbury leads off the ball game with an extra base hit.
It's going to be interesting to see how the Yankees play it after this leadoff double. Brett Gardner, we mentioned, he's been struggling. Just 3 hits in his last 31 at-bats. He might even bunt it right here early on, seeing if the Yankees can't get on the board quickly. Smoke and Kawasaki on the right side. Goins keeping an eye on Ellsbury at second. Not showing bunt, goes after the first pitch, and Pillar sets up. Ellsbury's tagging. It's a shallow ball. He won't be able to move up. Gardner pops out on the first pitch.
Designated hitter number 13, Alex Rodriguez.
Rodriguez 1 for 4 in the game last night. He had 3 strikeouts. He had a big opportunity in the 3rd inning with the bases loaded, and David Price struck him out.
What a pivotal at bat that was. He almost dropped the ball down the right field line, if you remember also. Then Price came back to get him.
Rodriguez talked about facing elite pitchers like Price. He said you might get 1, maybe 2 opportunities to cash in, and if you don't, it's going to be a long night. First pitch changeup is downstairs. Rodriguez for the season batting .255, 32 homers and 83 RBIs.
What a season he has put together. Although yesterday he struck out 3 times, he did have a single against Price, but he looked very comfortable, I thought, at the plate. If you're Marco Estrada, you got first base open. Maybe you take a chance and pitch around Rodriguez.
Got a lefty on deck, and McCann set up the double play. Rodriguez is 5th all-time in hits against the Blue Jays. He has 246 hits against the Blue Jays, one behind Cal Ripken. The all-time hits leader against the Jays, Derek Jeter, Rodriguez's former teammate. 341 hits for Jeter, destined to be a Hall of Famer. Marco Estrada's having a career season, 13-8 with a .314 earned run average. Inside fastball. 3-1. Estrada's ERA is the 6th best in the American League, and he's held hitters to the lowest batting average at .206 in the American League.
He has been sensational. He's better, I think, when he starts down in the strike zone and then starts to elevate that fastball.
He can always lean back on that changeup when he's in a jam.
Yeah, I think he's got that go-to pitch, and everybody knows it. And as a hitter, you can know it's coming. He can tell you it's coming, but it's so good, you're not going to hit it.
Fastball popped up 90 miles an hour, but after the previous changeup, Rodriguez was late. Rodriguez with 6 home runs and 14 RBIs over his last 20 ball games. Did not play in the weekend series against the Mets at Citi Field. Rodriguez takes ball 4. It's the first walk of the ball game. Brian McCann, he was 0 for 4 in the game last night. The catcher will step in. McCann in his 2nd season with the Yankees has had a terrific year. 26 homers and 90 RBIs for McCann.
You know, there's so much more to him than those offensive numbers. Those are beautiful numbers for a catcher, but you watch him day in and day out like we have against the Blue Jays. His leadership behind the plate, outstanding. He's done a great job with this staff.
Well, just when you think you might get a first pitch fastball after the walk to Rodriguez, Estrada and Navarro cross him up with that good changeup.
Yeah, that's who it is. It's Dioner Navarro. That's the guy that Estrada's going to follow all night long. Doesn't give many times where he just shakes him off. He's going to follow Dioner through these at-bats. A little miscommunication right there. Estrada, I think, wasn't sure what sign they were using.
That's a base hit into right field. Bautista will play it off the wall. Ellsbury's around third. He's going to score. Bautista gets it back in quickly. Rodriguez goes to third. McCann has given the Yankees a 1-0 lead. 2 hits and a walk here in the first inning, and New York has runners at the corners with 1 out.
Well, he's going to have to handle the left-handed batters. And you saw the sign of Navarro saying up like it was going to be a fastball. That's a changeup. And he's going to have to get that ball down. McCann pulls that ball past Smoke into the corner for a single. He's going to have to get a lot of these left-handed batters out. And the changeup, I think, is going to be important against him. You've got Ellsbury and Gardner, McCann, Bird, Ackley, Gregorius, straight left-handed batters.
Carlos Beltran, the switch-hitting right fielder. Beltran was 0 for 4 in the ball game last night. Estrada's splits against lefties and righties almost the same. We mentioned the league's hitting just 206 against him. Left-handers are hitting 201, while right-handers are hitting 214. Foul back.
Getting that fastball in there just a little bit more. If Beltran pulls the ball to Kawasaki at second base, it's going to be interesting how they're going to try and turn this double play. Just 1 out. They've got the shift on, and with the runner at third base, Donaldson has to get a little bit closer to that runner, so it's going to be Goins having to make the pivot at second base.
The appeal down to third, denied by Greg Gibson. Beltran checked in time. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Ball to left, Revere back, Rodriguez tagging at third. He's going to come in to score. It's 2-0 Yankees on the sac fly off the bat of Carlos Beltran. The Blue Jays took a 3-0 lead in their half of the first in last night's game, and now the Yankees are up 2-0. with 2 outs here in the first.
So it's situational hitting right there from Beltran. He's come up with some big RBIs for the Yankees over the last month.
You can't go to sleep on this guy. Greg Bird hit a laser beam home run to dead center here last night. That was off Roberto Osuna. He is a young slugger that's done something that the Yankees haven't seen for a long time.
He's had 7 home runs this month so far. He's the first and the youngest Yankee since 1954 to hit at least 7 home runs in a calendar month. You have to go all the way back to 1954. Some guy named Mickey Mantle hit 7 home runs, about the same age.
That fella Mantle would go on to have a pretty good career with the Yankees. 9 home runs for Bird. Pulled past Smoke. McCann's going to third. Bautista's throw is to second, and Goins blocks it. And Bird ripped it past Justin Smoke down the right field line. That's the 3rd hit of the inning.
They were not holding McCann on at first base. Not a steal attempt type of guy. This is a breaking ball, and Bird stays on it and hits it hard, but because they weren't holding him on, Smoke is going to have to backhand this ball. If he was holding him on, that would have been right to him. But it's under his glove.
They charge Smoke with an error, and I'm not sure I agree with that call. That ball was Smoke past
Smoke.
For Justin, that's his 4th error, and the Yankees have runners at second and third for Chase Headley. Mentioned the Yankees had just 5 hits in the game last night. Headley was 0 for 4. Two big runs on the bases that Estrada will really want to strand.
Yeah, he's got to pick up his teammate right here. Should be out of the inning. It's not through the air. He's got to pick him up. Taking him himself.
Couple of high pitches, and that really screams for that changeup now.
Or a curveball. That's the beauty of using that high fastball that Estrada's been doing. You can use that curveball too.
Two and two. Headley, the 7th Yankee to bat against Estrada here in the first. Up and down, up and down. That's been a very effective pattern for Estrada. A 25-pitch inning.
That's why he's got to pick up his teammate right here. He should be out of this inning. They make that play.
There's the curveball. Estrada does pick up smoke. The Yankees scored 2, but they strand a pair. Top of the order. Ben Revere, then Josh Donaldson, Jose Bautista. They combined for 5 hits last night. Ben Revere, Josh Donaldson, top 2 in the order. Then Jose Bautista. Man, oh man, he's been swinging a hot bat lately. Over his last 28, he's at .333 with 16 extra base hits. He's driven home 23 runs, and right behind him, Edwin Encarnacion has had a great season against the Yankees. He's helped the Blue Jays beat New York 12 times with that .327 average. He too has 9 extra base hits.
They will face a very young and very talented right-hander, and Luis Severino makes his 9th career start tonight versus the Blue Jays. He's 4-3 with a .312 earned run average. He's pitching on extended 5 days rest. They had an off day on Thursdays. 4-1 in his last 5 starts against the Blue Jays. He allowed a career-high 6 runs, including a couple of home runs. He failed to complete 5 innings for the first time in his career. That was back on September the 11th at Yankee Stadium. But this is a young and very talented right-hander.
Blue Jays knocked him out of the ball game. He left trailing 6-0 on that Friday night game in New York. But now he's staked to a 2-0 lead. Ben Revere steps in. He takes one upstairs. Revere 2 for 5 in the game last night. He started the Blue Jays rally in the first. He had a single to right, came around to score the first run of the ball game. What can the Blue Jays look for from Severino?
Good fastball with some movement. A little bit inconsistent with his slider. He's got a fastball that he can reach in the upper 90s. If you remember that start at Yankee Stadium, he gave up a double to Revere, the first batter he faced, then a long home run by Josh Donaldson. Then it looked like he's trying to aim the ball after that. He ended up giving up 5 runs in that first inning to the Blue Jays. He couldn't hit on his slider and his breaking pitches.
Off the glove of Headley. Gregorius right there, but not in time. Should be a base hit for Ben Revere. Too hot to handle.
Chase Headley is in because of the threat of the bunt attempt. So this ball is going to get to him very quickly. It's to his glove side. He ricochets the ball over to Gregorius, who is Johnny on the spot. Almost comes up with a great play. That ball right off the tip of the glove of Headley, but here comes Gregorius, who's got a great arm. If he throws it on a fly, he's out, but he happens to bounce it over there.
Right up the middle. Ackley flips to Gregorius. Donaldson grounds into the double play very quickly. One pitch, a double play, and that leadoff single is erased.
That ball was right by Severino. Watch him chuck it and duck it. But with the shift on, that is Dustin Ackley, the second baseman, to take away a hit from Josh Donaldson.
We saw that last night in the first inning when Ellsbury hit one right back to David Price. Price was fortunate to glove it. That one just went over Severino's back. It just missed him. Bautista goes after the first pitch and skies it to center. Ellsbury didn't see it for a moment, got it. What an inning for Severino. 6 pitches and he retires the side in order.
Back till at least the start of the postseason. He took a very big step forward here this afternoon. He played catch for the first time out in the field, and while the injury did occur on his non-throwing shoulder, he says he just hadn't had the range of motion to even attempt to throw a baseball until today. He told me that the pain is less and less as each day progresses. He's finished with seeing specialists now. It's all about healing, resting, and slowly getting himself into more baseball activity, like moving and running and throwing while he's on the run, taking some swings in the cage. He did take a few off the tee today, but the next step for him would be obviously to take some batting practice, and they don't want to go too fast. But the good news is, guys, he did take a step forward today.
Yeah, he sure did. He looked pretty good out on the field, and that's what you want to see. You want to see Tulowitzki going through some baseball activities, and he did that today. This is Dustin Ackley, second baseman. Ackley batting 8th tonight. They flip-flopped Ackley and Didi Gregorius in the 8th and 9th spot. Tulowitzki is an important cog in this team, obviously, and you can't rush him. You have to allow his body to work. But his absence has something to do with Kawasaki starting tonight at second base. Kawasaki hasn't started since August 1st. And now he's going to get tested. Mooney there, 1 down. But if Tulowitzki can't make it to the postseason roster, Kawasaki would be one of the 3 middle infielders the Blue Jays would have. They would have Goins, Pennington, and Kawasaki. Darwin Barney's not eligible for postseason play because he wasn't in the organization on August 31st.
You have to keep him sharp. This is only a 7th start at second base, and if they need an emergency, if you want to pinch hit or pinch run, that's another reason why he is starting. John Gibbons was also saying that if Darwin Barney started and they had to pinch hit for him, Kawasaki would go in. He would rather have the better glove at the end of the game than at the beginning of the game.
And Darwin Barney is a former Gold Glove second baseman, so he starts the game on the bench. There's a good low strike with the fastball.
That is going to be a key, I think, to watch. Talking to Deanna Navarro today, and he thought it was very important that he established his fastball, Marco's fastball, down in the strike zone early. The reason for that is I can go upstairs later in the at-bat.
Just like that. And that's what you want to do as a catcher. You want to make the hitter aware of the widest margin of the strike zone, up and down and in and out. Make him think about all corners of that strike zone.
And I think especially for what Marco Estrada throws, the fastball, the curveball, and the changeup.
Line drive into center. Pilar is there. 2 quick outs here in the second.
That whole at bat and the out, the consequence of being an out, was all set up because of that low strike early in the count.
So we turn the lineup over, and Jacoby Ellsbury got everything started for the Yanks with a double. Down the right field line, his first time up, he scored the first run of the ball game. There's a drive to left field. Rivera's back. He's not going to get this one. Ellsbury slams it up against the base of the wall in left. He is absolutely swinging a red-hot bat right now.
Much different than the Ellsbury we saw back at Yankee Stadium. Remember, he missed a lot of time with injuries this year, and the timing for Ellsbury at the plate just wasn't there. Well, I think it's safe to say it's back. This is going to be his second double. The first one went down the right field line. This time he stays on this one, drives it over the head of Rivera in left field. Boy, what an important cog to this offense, Jacoby Ellsbury.
Ellsbury and Gardner, when you keep them off base, you've got a pretty decent chance to beat the Yankees. But Ellsbury's been aboard twice. Gardner popped out on 1 pitch his first time up. Isn't it interesting? Gardner is now 3 for 32. Even good hitters like Brett Gardner get anxious, and he chased that first pitch with Ellsbury at second in the first inning.
Yeah, he had the infield in. I think that's what he was thinking. I've got the infield shortened up with that leadoff double. I'm going to drive the ball through the infield, and he just popped it up. He homered off of Estrada the last time they faced each other at Yankee Stadium.
That was a first inning home run, one of 3 Yankee home runs that Estrada allowed. That was in game 1 of the doubleheader on Saturday at Yankee Stadium. Estrada was matched up against Michael Pineda. Bouncing ball, Kawasaki to his left. is over. Gardner grounds out. He's 0 for 2. The Yankees leave a base runner. We'll go to the bottom of the second. New York has a 2-0 lead. Let's check in with our own Hazel May.
Buck, rookie right-hander Luis Severino has fared well in the majors, except, of course, when he happens to face the Toronto Blue Jays. Versus Toronto, he's 0-2 with an ERA dangerously approaching double digits. So what's been the big issue as far as Severino and the Jays? Well, manager Joe Girardi summed it up in one word: command. He didn't have command of his slider, his changeup, or his fastball, and when that happens, that's a bad combination. He was also getting behind the Blue Jays hitters and giving them extra base runners, and when that happens, you suffer the consequences. Girardi went on to say that sometimes the pitcher has the same strengths as the hitters he's facing. So, just because the Blue Jays are a good fastball-hitting team, he doesn't want Severino to shy away from using that explosive fastball of his. Girardi says you must attack the way you know how. So, Buck, that is where that command is so vitally important.
It is important. You can't change who you are. You just have to make sure you execute your location, and I think that's the point well made by Joe Girardi. If you're a fastball pitcher, you got to stick to your fastball. You just have to make good pitches.
You certainly can't run away from these guys, the Blue Jay hitters, because they're not going to chase you around that strike zone.
Edwin Encarnacion takes the first pitch strike. There's that fastball well placed. Edwin has hit .327 this season against the Yankees. He's driven home 10 runs. Going to be interesting to watch how Severino works. The 2 home runs he gave up to the Yankees were in the first inning, part of a 5-run first.
Reaches back for a little something extra. I thought the Yankees have done a really good job with Guy watching his innings. He averaged about 5 innings, started the season in Double-A, 5 innings in a start in Double-A, and about 5.1 innings a start when he was in Triple-A, just to keep that innings count down so he's fresh late in the season.
Encarnacion strikes out. That's the first strikeout of the night for Severino. The slider gets Encarnacion.
Well, he got ahead with the fastball and then finished him with the slider. We have seen a lot of the Yankee pitchers start throwing a breaking ball early in the count for strike one and then starting to nibble against the Blue Jays, and they just haven't swung at those pitches. That time he was aggressive early and then expanded.
Severino ahead of Justin Smoak. Smoak hit a 2-run home run off Severino the last time we faced him. That was in that Friday night game in New York. Breaking ball. Gregorius cuts in front of Ackley. The shortstop throws out Smoak.
Let's take a look at the scouting report for young Luis Severino. He was born in 1994, so he's got a bright future ahead of him. That fastball, 53% of the time. He's going to be an upper 90s type of pitcher. The slider can be inconsistent, but look at the speed on it. It's almost as good as some people's fastball. It's almost a 90-mile-an-hour average on that slider, and the changeup is a hard pitch, too, almost 88 miles per hour on that. The fastball is the batting average, the lowest batting average against. He has got to throw that, and they're only hitting 225 off of his fastball this season.
Gianni Navarro, the switch-hitting catcher. Navarro played on Sunday. Caught Mark Burley in that ball game. This is a ground ball. Chase Headley cuts in front of Didi Gregorius. Easy inning for Severino. 3 up, 3 down in the second. We move to the third. Yanks up by 2.
Presented by the all-new 2016 Honda Pilot, proud partner and official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
That is the WestJet flight deck, and it's jammed to the gills. Another sold-out crowd here tonight. The fans have supported this ball club, and why not? The Jays are 3.5 games ahead in the American League East. Marcus Stroman will pitch tomorrow, and he got 2 pretty good mentors on his flanks, that's for sure.
If I'm a young player, and especially a young pitcher, that's exactly where I would be sitting, and I would be picking the brains of each one of those guys. Hey, what do you think about this? I'm pitching tomorrow. What did you do yesterday, David? What kind of success did you have against him? I mean, there's no telling how much information you can get when you're sitting next to those veterans.
Lots of experience, lots of success. The boos will tell you who's batting. Inside. Rodriguez has a Canadian connection. He played in Calgary in AAA in 1994 before he came up to the Mariners.
He didn't spend many years in the minor leagues. What was he, 18 when he was there?
Yeah, he came to the big leagues when he was 18. Three and 1 to Rodriguez. Perfect pitch, down and away. Tough to get to for Rodriguez.
Alex was one of the players that homered off of Estrada back at Yankee Stadium the last time these two teams met. And it was a pitch similar to that last one right there. Pitch down and away. Remember that? He just got underneath and hit a fly ball. It landed in the first row at Yankee Stadium.
There's a pop-up. Smoke will give it a look over near the seats, but it's about 6 rows back out of play. Rodriguez signed as an 18-year-old. He went right to A-ball. Appleton in the Midwest League as an 18-year-old hit .319. Then he went up to AA Jacksonville and hit .288. Ended up in Calgary for 32 games, hit .311. This is playable. Bautista, the right fielder, comes in. He's there. Rodriguez is retired. Well, the Yankees came into town trailing the Blue Jays by 2.5 games. The Jays won the game last night behind David Price 4-2, and they have extended their lead over New York.
And that's why these games are so important. This is the last chance that the Blue Jays have, today and tomorrow, a chance to go head-to-head against their greatest competitor in this division. You can sweep them now by winning game number 1 and maybe go up by 5.5 games, or you can win the series and go up a game on them, go up to 3.5 where they are right now, and then they don't face each other anymore. That's it.
The Blue Jays will stay home and play Tampa Bay, a 3-game series over the weekend beginning Friday night. The Yankees will go back to the Bronx and welcome in the Chicago White Sox, who have made a pitching change in their rotation. The White Sox originally had scheduled Carlos Rondon to open up that series, but they've made a slight adjustment. Chris Sale will now open up against Michael Pineda in the first of 4 games.
Sale was supposed to throw tomorrow for Chicago and then missed the whole Yankee series. They've changed that.
McCann drills this one to the alley. Pillar's on the run, and he gets there. Kevin Pillar can cover a lot of ground. He was shaded to the right side of second, and Estrada appreciates the effort of his center field.
You have to have good outfield play with Marco Estrada on the mound. He'll give up his share of fly balls. You can see Pillar at the top of your screen shading McCann to pull to right field, so he's got a long way to go. When McCann crosses him up and slices that ball to left center field, got a good jump on that ball and just ran right through the catch.
Carlos Beltran had a sac fly in the first. Curveball, base hit. Bautista over to cut it off. Beltran looked like he knew what was coming on that hook.
I bet you he had a good idea in the back of his mind what he wanted to do. He's got great hands. Stayed back on that ball and just used his wrists. Flipped that ball into right field.
First baseman Greg Bird bats with Beltran at first and 2 outs. Bird's a dangerous hitter. He reached on an air, hot shot to the backhand side of Justin Smoke at first. Bird's just 22 years old. 5th round pick of the Yankees in 2011. All the Yankees that have been around for a while, including Beltran and Rodriguez and some of the coaching stuff, see a lot of John Olerud in Greg Bird.
Very slow at the plate, slows it down, doesn't get too excited. That hit by Beltran was his 1,450th hit in the major leagues. And his approach at the plate, the way he did that, was pretty impressive. Stay back on that curveball and just wrist it into right field.
upstairs. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Estrada trying to leave a base runner at first. Yankees scored 2 in the top of the first. Third strikes out. Just the second strikeout for Estrada. But the Yankees lead 1 to Blue Jays. Will bat bottom of the 3rd, down by 2.
In the WestJet flight deck, see there's a Newfoundland flag right in dead center, and if the fans want to win something big from WestJet, well, we'll see if someone hits a home run up there. It is the WestJet Flight Deck Home Run Contest. If a Blue Jays player hits one into the flight deck, your name could be drawn to win $25,000 WestJet dollars. For full contest rules and entry form, visit BlueJays.com/WestJet contest. Buck?
Barry Davis, it looks like nobody is having fun out there. What a party place this has become, the WestJet flight deck. Well, the Blue Jays got to get something going. Luis Severino's only thrown 15 pitches. He hasn't thrown enough pitches for the Blue Jays to get a good read on him yet. It'll be Goins, Pilar, and Kawasaki, bottom 3rd of the Blue Jays order. Severino has faced the minimum. Ben Revere had an infield hit. He was erased on a double play, and Bautista flied out. Blue Jays went in order in the 2nd.
I think the Blue Jays will pick up that Severino's around the plate. And he is being very aggressive, especially early in the counts. Josh Donaldson hit the first pitch he saw.
That's cued off the end of the bat. Looked like it had a little spin that took it back toward the foul line, but it's a foul ball. The Blue Jays have so many veteran hitters in their lineup. They will come back to the bench and they'll talk about what they saw from Severino and put all that information together and utilize it 2nd, 3rd time through the order. Of course, they hope they don't have to face Severino the 3rd time, and they'll knock him out after his 2nd trip.
He's got great splits as he gets into the ball games. Gets stronger and stronger as the game wears along.
Severino, it's the little comebacker. Goins is retired.
Help is only 140 million miles away. The Martian. In theaters, October 2nd.
One out. This will be Kevin Pillar batting in the 8th spot tonight. Severino missed his spot, missed all the way across the plate, but it catches the inside corner for a strike. Pillar was out working early today. He and Josh Donaldson were hitting off the breaking ball machine. He stayed on that breaking ball, but that's another thing he talked about to us was he's looking for the breaking ball and hitting it, but he's pulling it foul more often than not. He said he needs to stay through it a little bit more.
And that's why he was out here working on that breaking ball machine along with Josh Donaldson. He said he's going around the ball. And what I mean by that is the bat head, instead of going through the strike zone when you make contact, it's going around it. And when you do that, when you open up the hips a little bit too quickly, you start going around the ball and start fouling pitches instead of hitting it back through the middle.
There's a drive to left, and this ball is gone. Kevin Pillar, home run number 11.
Well, he didn't go around that one. That is a classic quick snatch through the baseball. Hitters that have low hands, pitchers with good fastballs like to try to elevate the fastball and get it above their hands. Kevin Pillar was waiting for it that time.
Two-1 ball game, just like that. This is Munenori Kawasaki.
They wanted that fastball up, and you could see how that bat head went through the baseball and drove it out of the ballpark. He didn't go around that one. Hands are inside it. Home run number 11. Watch the hand stay inside that ball, and that allows that ball to stay fair. If he goes around that ball, he hooks it, and it goes foul. There are the two guys who were out here early, about 2:30, 3 o'clock. It's like Moody's trying to go back to back. That's a couple of wild swings, the wildest swings we've seen from him in a couple of years.
He hadn't played in the big leagues for a while. He is very much under control. He's taken 2 wild swings against Severino. On the ground. D.D. Gregorius has it. 2 down. So Severino, first time through the order, he gives up 2 hits and a home run. Kevin Pillar's home run number 11, RBI number 49. See what they do this time. Get another look at Severino.
Well, he's got to stay aggressive, doesn't he?
I don't think you can change your pattern. Blue Jays saw more fastballs the first time than I think they expected.
That's his changeup. We showed you in that scouting report that it's a hard changeup. Upper 80s change. And that time it had a little dip on it.
Ackley comes out, Tripp throws the first to retire Revere, but the Blue Jays get on the board against Luis Severino. Kevin Pillar gets a fastball and hammers it into the second deck in left. Home run number 11. 2-1 ball.
Presented by the all-new 2016 Honda Pilot, proud partner and official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
We played 3 innings here at Rogers Center. The Yankees have a 2-1 lead. They scored 2 runs in the first. They made a scoring change. The Greg Bird at bat in the first inning. He was initially given the air. Smoke was charged with an air at first base. It has now been changed to a double. So Greg Bird has extended his hit streak to 7 straight. Chase Headley goes after the first pitch. It's a routine fly ball to right. 1 pitch, 1 out here in the 4th. These are momentum innings. Your club scores you a run, you need to throw up a 0.
Throw up a 0, throw one up quickly. Get the crowd back into it. After that home run by Kevin Pillar, the crowd was buzzing.
Dustin Ackley grounded out to second his first time up. Ackley was 1 for 3 in the ballgame last night. Change up, he wouldn't chase. The Blue Jays have beaten the Yankees 12 times this season. That's a franchise high in wins against New York.
That broke the tie with the 1992 team, who had 11 wins during the Yankees in one season.
In 2015, the Blue Jays with 12 wins against the Yankees. 92. They were 11-2. Played just 13 games in 2010. 10 wins, and they have 3 seasons in which they have 9 wins. Smoke will go to the bag and retire Ackley. 2 down. It's a big at bat for Estrada. Retire Gregorius and leave Jacoby Ellsbury on deck.
Yeah, I don't want him facing Ellsbury with runners on base.
Ellsbury is 4 for 6 in the series already with a pair of doubles tonight. First pitch strike. Pushed him back. I don't know where the Blue Jays would be without Marco Estrada. He started out the season working out of the bullpen. He had suffered an ankle injury in spring training and just couldn't get enough work in to get ready to make a bid for that starting rotation.
But when that opportunity came, and it was Daniel Norris who was sent down. Daniel was ineffective while he was with the Blue Jays. Norris was sent to AAA, and there was Marco Estrada, who had a couple of outings out of the bullpen, ready to step in that first start. That first start was against these Yankees.
One and 2. Fly ball. Pillar on the run. You can't get it past him. If it's in the air and stays in the park, chances are Kevin Pillar is going to catch it. Too late to get some early work in. Josh Donaldson was out at 3 o'clock hitting against the breaking ball machine.
Brooke Jacoby was telling me that he's been seeing a lot of breaking balls lately, Josh, and you can see them talking about it. And Brooke went back and he looked at some of the at-bats for Donaldson over the last month or so. He said before teams were early in the count throwing fastballs and then finishing them off with breaking balls, but ever since the calendar flipped to September, they've been throwing a lot of breaking balls early in the count and then more fastballs late in the count. You and I have a theory over that one, don't we?
Yeah, I think the August games, most of those games were played away from the American League East. Once you get back into September, yeah, these teams have seen a lot of Donaldson, and they're going to throw him a lot of breaking balls.
Especially early in the count. So as a hitter, you know, you talk about adjustments all the time. Pitchers making adjustments, hitters making adjustments. Well, the adjustment right now for Josh is breaking balls early in the count.
Fastball on the corner. Well, that's where the catcher has to help a young pitcher like Severino. Just got to stay ahead of Josh Donaldson. Going to throw him a changeup. And a good one. McCann is a veteran, and Severino, of course, is a rookie, but McCann has made a point to tell all of his pitchers, if I give you a sign and you don't like it, shake me off. He said, I'm not perfect back here. You have to believe in the pitch before you throw it. And you know what? I agree with it 100%. There's not a catcher in the world that can call a perfect game if the pitcher doesn't buy into what he's calling.
They have to have conviction, don't they? The pitcher in what they are throwing. If they don't feel comfortable throwing a breaking ball, here's another changeup. If they don't have conviction that that's the pitch, they're going to make a mistake.
And this is a dangerous area to make mistakes in. 3-2 to Donaldson. Fly ball left field. Is it enough? It is into the seats. He got jammed. He's checking out his bat to see if it's still intact, and we'll pack the lumber back to home plate. That ball got in on him a bit.
Looked like it was one of those hard changeups. One more time. It's got a lot of sink to him, a lot of run to that changeup. That one got in on Josh a little bit.
So Donaldson's aboard for Jose Bautista. He's enjoyed a nice streak against the Yankees recently.
Take a look at some of these numbers that Jose Bautista has put up over just the last 11 games against the Yankees. How about 5 home runs and 11 RBIs, a batting average just under 400 for Jose, and an on-base plus slugging of 1.267. Good players come to the forefront against good teams, especially late in the season, and we're seeing that from Bautista.
He's hitting in 11 straight games against the Yankees. Oh, he drives this one deep to right center. Beltran's on the run. He makes the catch over his shoulder. Donaldson will retreat to first. That was a breaking ball that just spun out over the plate and looked like he just didn't get full extension on it.
That was a hanger right there. And Jose just missed it. That's a home run at Yankee Stadium for sure. Drives Beltran all the way to the wall in right center field. He almost overran that ball.
Coming off the right-handed bat of Bautista, that ball had a lot of spin on it. Took it back over the head of Beltran. Edwin Encarnacion struck out on a slider back in the second inning. Donaldson's perfect in steal attempts. He's 6 for 6. Severino hasn't really gotten command of that breaking ball just yet. Donaldson will move to second base. He's in scoring position. Wild pitch charge to Severino.
Slider, changeup. Now you have wild pitched that runner as that ball bounces off the heel of the glove of Brian McCann. You have wild pitched him into scoring position. If you're not going to throw him a fastball 2-0, you're not going to throw it to him 3-0, are you?
I wouldn't think so, because you know Encarnacion's got the green light. Smoke is on deck. And there's that breaking ball. Severino's got a great fastball. The last one touched 97. Smoke grounded out to the shortstop his first time up. They were playing him in a shift. Ground ball. Headley at third. Takes his time and retires Encarnacion. Boy, Headley's very tentative with those throws. He's committed 22 errors this season. 11 of those have been throwing errors.
Former Gold Glove winner when he was with San Diego. You're right. Very slow and very guarded on his throws across the diamond.
Justin Smoke. Mentioned he grounded out to Gregorius. Now they can't play him in that exaggerated shift with Donaldson at second. Severino looked like he slipped on the mound on that last delivery. That landing foot kind of gave way, but doesn't appear to be too concerned about it.
Didn't that happen at Yankee Stadium? Wasn't it Severino?
He caught his spikes. Yep.
Caught his spikes in that
in
game.
The first inning.
Mm-hmm.
Yankees have a 2-1 lead. Donaldson with the leadoff walk move to second on the wild pitch. Base hit to right. Donaldson's coming around third. Here's the throw from Beltran. It is offline. Throw to second is in time to get Smoke. The run counts. Donaldson scored before Smoke is out at second, and Justin Smoke has tied it up. We'll go to the fifth. It's a 2-2 ball game. Now time for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zong.
screen from anywhere. Subscribe for the 2015-16 season before October the 6th to get the early bird rate of $179.99. Get started at Rogers.com/NHL. Well, Buck, the NHL preseason is well underway.
Tanner McDavid played last night for Edmonton, and everybody was excited about that. Let's take a look at that last play.
There's Josh Donaldson at second base. Crack of the bat, you're running with 2 outs. You can see Smoke looking over his shoulder. How about the pitcher coming up to be the cutoff man there? He usually has to back up the catcher. But I was watching Josh Donaldson on that, and he did the correct thing as the base runner. He ran all the way through home plate, knowing that there was going to be a play at second base. If he slows down, when he sees the catcher leave home plate and the out is recorded at second base, that run doesn't count.
Yeah, and Louis Rivera, the third base coach, will holler at the base runners as they go around. You got to go, just to make sure that you cross home plate before that third out is recorded. Jacoby Ellsbury 2 for 2 with a pair of doubles.
Here comes Josh coming around, and he knows that there might be a play at the plate. Look at him run right through home plate. And that's why the umpire, you see him pointing that run scores. That's why you never take a play off in the game of baseball, especially in September.
Well, and Louis Rivera trusts his base runners to give him 100% effort, and that's how he can make the best judgment whether to hold them or send them. As the third base coach, if you're not sure what kind of effort you're getting for your base runner, how do you make a decision whether you should send it?
And everything was done right there by the Blue Jays. Justin Smoke reads a high throw. He's going to try and get into scoring position. So you go making them cut that ball off so you guarantee that run is going to score. And then a wild throw, and he's at second base.
Smoke has 53 RBIs now, just 2 off of his career high. Justin drove in 55 for the Mariners in 2011, and he had 427 at-bats. With 2 at-bats tonight, he has 268. There's a good changeup. They finally retire Ellsbury.
I like that they went right back to the changeup. The previous pitch was a change, and it wasn't a good one. It bounced on home plate. They went right back to it, and this time much better. You can see how taking a little something off of that pitch really messes up the timing on that hitter. And they get a hot hitter out.
Brett Gardner's 0 for 2. Gardner's 0 for 5 in the series. First pitch change up to Gardner. Marco Estrada has established new highs in games started and innings pitched. He's also set a career high with 13 wins. His previous high win total, he won 7 games in each of his last 2 years with the Milwaukee Brewers, 2013-2014. So he's nearly doubled his career win total in a single season.
He was thinking about shaking off Navarro there. That would have been the 3rd straight fastball. They wanted it up. He was thinking about it, and Deanna said, no, come on. Give me that high fastball one more time. It's going to set this pitch up right here.
Curveball hit on the ground. Goins has it. 2 down.
Designated hitter number 13, Alex Rodriguez.
2 outs. Rodriguez batting with nobody on. Foul ball outside of third. Estrada now has the Yankees in swing mode. He's thrown enough strikes in these middle innings now that they're up there aggressively swinging the bat.
Using the fastball a little bit more early in the count. There's another one.
Donaldson knocks it down, but it's a foul ball. There are a lot of scouts around Major League Baseball that go out and look for amateur pitchers. They're going to take video of Marco Estrada and say, you know what, it's not always about the radar gun.
It shouldn't be about the radar gun.
What is?
Oh, it is. I know it is. But it should be about touch and feel and being able to throw all your pitches for strikes, command, location. That guy right there, Mark Burley, he comes to the head of the class for me when you talk about a guy having to make pitches.
Fly ball. Bautista backs up a couple of steps. Marco Estrada has retired 7 straight.
Tonight we welcome guests of TD. Meanwhile, there are some very special guests over in the Jays Care Community Clubhouse as we welcome folks from Holland, Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Center. And guys, with the postseason just beyond now, the tickets for playoff games will go on sale to the general public Thursday at 10 a.m. Fans can purchase tickets to the wild card and or divisional series by going to BlueJays.com or calling 416-341-1234. Limited inventory is available, and I imagine most fans will hope that there is not a need for that wild card game. That is a very scary thing to have to play one game in or out, Buck.
Yeah, there's not a Blue Jay that's thinking about the wild card position, that's for sure. They're all thinking about wrapping up the division. Guarantees yourself a 5-game series. Navarro, Goins, and Pilar will bat for the Blue Jays here in the 5th. 2-2 ball game. This is not unusual for the Yankees. The Yankees starters have allowed 3 earned runs or less in 8 straight games. The Yankees over those 8 games have gone 5-3, but the starters' ERA 1.84, so they've kept them in the hunt. And the Yankees are without 2 of their top starters. That's a fair ball, knocked down by Bird. They've got time. Severino is there. 1 out. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Thank you very much, Jamie. And when you look down there in that series, the Angels playing Houston. Carlos Correa played his final game as a 20-year-old yesterday. Went 3 for 4 and hit his 19th home run. He's the only player to hit more homers as a shortstop. The only player to hit more home runs as a shortstop before they turn 21 than Correa. Alex Rodriguez. Rodriguez hit 26 home runs as a shortstop before he turned 21. Carlos Correa. And he didn't come up till halfway through the season. He has hit 19 home runs.
He looks a lot like Alex Rodriguez did when he was that age. Tall and wiry with great leverage when he swings.
Correa is batting .278 for the season, and we mentioned they kept him down in the minor leagues for quite a while. Goins hits it off the end of the bat. Ellsbury broke back, but he's got enough speed to recover.
The all-new 2016 Honda Pilot, proud partner and official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Two down. Here is Kevin Pillar, who homered in the 3rd. And put the Blue Jays on the board, cut the lead in half.
You talk about the Yankees starting pitching, missing a couple of starters. They got some bad news on Nathan Eovaldi.
Eovaldi's been trying to throw, and he just can't throw yet. His elbow is still too sore.
All the medicals, if you will, the pain is not there when they test him, doing all the medical side. But when he comes out to throw and tries to reach back for a little more, that's when he starts to feel it. There were some thoughts that if they get in the playoffs, he'd be ready for the playoffs. Now they're not so sure.
Guy's not even playing catch yet, so he's a ways away from coming back to the Yankees. And of course, they lost Tanaka. He was supposed to start here tomorrow night, and he injured his hamstring running the bases Friday night in New York against the Mets. CC Sabathia pitched well in the Sunday finale against the Mets.
He looked great.
He's been pitching with a knee brace.
Says the knee feels pretty good.
Inside. 2-2 to Kevin Pillar. We're in the 5th. Straighten him up. Munenori Kawasaki grounded out. His only time up. Severino thought it was strike 3. Pillar knew it was ball 4. 2 walks issued by Severino. Kawasaki, a fan favorite here at Rogers Center. Mooney's now 34 years old. This is his 3rd season with the Blue Jays.
Mooney being aggressive early in the counts now against Severino. That's twice he has swung at the first pitch.
Been a while since Munenori has had a chance to play, but Blue Jays are intent on giving him some at-bats.
He is best, or at his best, when he is hitting that ball the other way. He's getting a little bit too long in his swing right now. He just needs to slap that ball the other way. Helps him to stay on the ball a little bit longer.
Munenori Kawasaki played 11 seasons in Japan. He played for the Daiei Hawks in Fukuoka, who later became the SoftBank Hawks. There goes Pilar. McCann's throw is offline. Number 21 for Kevin Pilar. He's only been caught 3 times.
And a great time to run. Young pitcher on the mound. He's ahead of the hitter. He doesn't even look at Pilar. He just goes. Watch it. He comes, and now he goes. And Pilar is going to steal bag number 21. It's a good time to go right there.
One and two to Kawasaki. The outfield is very shallow. Pilar is going to have to get a good break should there be a base hit. Severino has held the Blue Jays to 2 runs on 3 hits. It's going to be into the seats down the left side. Kawasaki hit 305 times in Japan. He was an everyday shortstop at the age of 22. Strike 3 called. Fastball on the inside corner. Kawasaki is called out on strikes. It's a 2-2 game. We head to the 6th, and here comes the Home Hardware Cleanup Crew, brought to you by Mitsura. Home Hardware's exclusive line of safe, environmentally friendly cleaning products.
with MLB.tv. Watch every out-of-market game live in HD on more than 400 devices with MLB.tv Premium. Real game highlights, live look-ins, pitch tracking, and more. Every night on every device. Visit BlueJays.com for more details. And one race buck a lot of Blue Jay fans are watching is the one to see who wins the American League outright. And the Blue Jays trailed the Royals by a game and a half in that lead. And the Royals trailing the Seattle Mariners 2-0 early on. So that's good news for Jays fans.
It sure is. Jeremy Guthrie has given up 2 home runs in Kansas City tonight. Kyle Seager has his 25th. Robbie Cano has his 18th. Sashi Iwakuma is the starter for Seattle. The Royals are in a tough matchup.
He has been hot. How about this? Now, we all know about the shift right here, but look who's out in right field. It's Ryan Goins. Better arm, a little bit more range. That's why he is out there. He is the shortstop.
And Kawasaki gets a big hop. Brian McCann is retired. Let's check in with Jamie Kemble. Now, Daniel Norris had that oblique injury, so I'm sure they're very cautious with him. 5 innings, 4 strikeouts. This is a long drive to right, and that is a foul ball. Not by much. Tony Pena, the first base coach for the Yankees, really zeroed in on that ball, and it was deep, but just hooked foul at the last second.
Beltran has come up with some big hits, and it about that much. Looked like he might have had another one.
Beltran has 16 home runs so far this season. Pete Walker checking on the status of the bullpen. Drew Hutchison and Aaron Loop loosening up. Hutchison has not pitched since moving to the bullpen. Marco Estrada with 1 out in the 6th. Curveball. Goins in shallow right. 2 down. Greg Bird has doubled and struck out. Curveball bounced in the dirt. Alex Rodriguez, in talking about Greg Bird, he had already suggested, we mentioned that he compared him to John Olerud for his temperament, his silky smooth swing. He called Olerud the best baseball player I ever played with, which I thought was quite a statement. He said Ken Griffey Jr. was the most talented baseball player, but John Olerud was the best baseball player. Foul. He said the reason I think Olerud was such a great baseball player, first of all, he came from Washington State University where he was a two-way player. He was 13-0 as a pitcher. Then he came right to the Blue Jays and immediately contributed to a winning effort. Then he went to Seattle. He said we went from last to first with Olerud. And then Olerud left Seattle, went to the Mets, and they won. It's not an accident.
So many good teams he played on. Best baseball player. That's interesting.
I really thought it was interesting, and he offered that up unsolicited. He talked about Bird and how he reminded him of John Olerud. 2-2, 2 outs. Now it's a full count. Chase Headley waits on deck. Joe Girardi's Yankees don't have another off day. They will play out the string. They'll finish up this series tomorrow night, go home to welcome in the White Sox for 4, and then the Boston Red Sox for 4 more. They'll finish up on the road at Baltimore. Popped up. Shallow left field. Cohen's calling for it. Revere pulls up, and the shortstop makes the catch. 10 straight retired by Marco Estrada, looking for some help from his offense. Top of the order when we come back.
His team with a 22-day countdown to the last home game. You can share your passion on social media with a picture or video with the hashtag 22daysbluejays as we let the celebration begin. And we can let you know that the team that began in the East is now in Ottawa. The team in the West is making its way through Sault Ste. Marie today, but they are driving through some nasty weather out there. But all the fans that are stopping by to say hello are having a great time. Buck, Pat, Blue Jay fans right across this country are feeling the buzz.
Well, they sure are, Barry. Everybody is involved, and there's a fan from Yellowknife that brought the sign out. We have had fans from all over the country. Had a gentleman and his wife today said they drove 16 hours to come to this game tonight. So everybody's excited about what Blue Jays are doing. It's a 2-2 game, top of the order for the Jays. Ben Revere bats for the 3rd time tonight. 1 for 2 so far. Ball and a strike to Ben Revere. The Blue Jays haven't seen an awful lot of the big three in the back end of the Yankees bullpen, and that's one of them. That's Justin Wilson. Justin Wilson, Dylan Betances, and Andrew Miller. That's how the Yankees close out games.
That's as good as it gets right there in baseball. They are. It's some kind of weapon that Joe Girardi can have. That's why I think it's imperative that if you play the Yankees, you've got to get the lead before the 6th inning.
So fly ball. Ellsbury on the run. Ball is going to hang up for him. 1 down.
The all-new 2016 Honda Pilot. Proud partner and official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
The Blue Jays are 12-5 against the Yankees this season. And that's why you haven't seen a lot of those back end relievers. This is a bouncing ball, hits on the dirt. Headley throws a strike just in time to get Donaldson. 2 quick outs here in the 6th.
Severino's been very efficient with his pitches. Told you that they have really watched his innings this year, that they didn't stretch him out too far in the minor leagues so he could be fresh in September if he needed to help the big league club. He's only thrown 77 pitches tonight.
Bautista tried to check, and he went around, according to Jim Reynolds, down at first. Bautista had a pretty definitive game plan going into this ball game tonight against Severino.
You know, for the great numbers that Jose has put up, when you talk to him, he is a very smart hitter. He understands what pitchers try to do to him, and he puts together game plans accordingly.
He said the one thing was that the Yankee pitchers haven't thrown too many pitches over the heart of the plate to him.
They have thrown a lot of pitches on the outside. They like to nibble against it, and why not? But he understands that. He'll throw breaking balls early in the count and then go back to nibbling, so he's going to have to be patient and wait for one in the middle.
I think that's his biggest strength. He's a 2-time home run champ. And he feels like he could probably hit balls off the plate out of the ballpark, but he doesn't chase. Then he'll take another walk. Severino, young starter in his first season in the major leagues, has done something you don't normally see with a young pitcher.
He gets stronger and stronger as the game goes along. First time through the order, it's 263. Second time, 226. And then all the way down to 205 the third time through the lineup. That's where the Blue Jays are right now. To put that in perspective, the major league average time through the order, third time through, 270. Severino's at 205, 65 points better.
Edwin Encarnacion hooked that pitch foul. There are 6 batters in the major leagues that have 30-plus home runs and 100-plus RBIs, and the Blue Jays have 3 of them. Donaldson, Bautista, Encarnacion. Nolan Arenado of the Rockies, Chris Davis of the Orioles, and Yoenis Cespedes now with the Mets are the other 3. The Blue Jays are blessed to have 3 talented sluggers.
That's in all of baseball. There's only 6. Half of them wear the blue.
With one more home run, Encarnacion will have 35, and that will give the Blue Jays a trio of hitters that have hit 35 or more with 100 or more RBIs for just the second time in franchise history. And Severino doesn't want anything to do with the inner part of this plate.
He made a mistake. You can see that number 3 on that pitch tracker. That was a breaking ball on the inner half, and it was up. And that was the one that Edwin pulled down the left field line foul.
Another pitch well outside. In the 5th spot, it's Justin Smoke. He drove in the tying run back in the 4th. Bautista will be off on the pitch. Edwin goes around. He chases that slider. Strikes out for a second time. The Blue Jays get a 2-out walk. Leave a man. Will go to the 7th. It's a 2-2 ball game.
It is a battle of two Pacific Division rivals. Catch a glimpse of the Canucks' youngest stars as they take on the San Jose Sharks. Tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific on Sportsnet 1. Buck?
Hard to fathom that the hockey season is close by. Exhibition hockey, and they do a nice job of taking the game on the road. Marco Estrada, boy, it looked like he was going to have an early exit tonight as the Yankees scored 2 runs on 3 hits in the first. But he has settled down. He's retired the last 10 Yankees he's faced.
He's only given up 2 hits since that first inning. He'll face 7, 8, 9 here in the 7th inning. He might be getting close to the end. He's closing in on 100 pitches. It's the 3rd time through the lineup here, and Blue Jays have some action in that bullpen just in case. So I think John Gibbons is going to have a short leash this inning.
Liam Hendricks has replaced Drew Hutchison, who was throwing earlier. Aaron Loop is ready. He's been up earlier tonight. Brett Cecil, you wouldn't think would be available tonight. He's worked in 3 straight. That's a little looper. Goins is out in right. He is there and makes the catch. So Dustin Ackley will bat, and now Goins is going to return to a more normal defensive position.
Yeah, remember, they're using Goins, the shortstop, in that shift out into the outfield. More range, better arm. So he's got to now take that traditional position at shortstop.
Pat, there's been so much controversy surrounding innings limits, pitch counts, especially in New York with Matt Harvey. And there's been some concern about Marco Estrada. He's reached a new high in innings pitched. What's your reaction to the way you've seen Estrada pitch down the stretch?
He's getting stronger. That's what I'm seeing. There's no limit on him. He's 32 years old, and he's going to go out there and just keep doing his thing. Another thing that you have to take into consideration, I think, is the type of pitcher you're dealing with. Marco Estrada is one of those guys who's a touch and feel guy. He's got a curveball, a changeup, his fastball. Not a max effort. 96, 97, where you might hurt your arm if you overthrow. He's not going to do that. That might be his last batter.
So he loses Dustin Ackley, walks him, and now Pete Walker's checking on the status of the 2 relievers. John Gibbons has moved to the top step of the dugout.
This is a spot where there's 4 consecutive left-handed batters in the lineup for the Yankees.
D.D. Gregorius, the shortstop, has flied out twice to Pilar in center. The walk by Estrada snapped a streak of 11 straight retired. And now the veteran Navarro takes a very timely trip to the mound.
That's 5 straight pitches outside the strike zone right there for Estrada. And what Navarro does when he goes out there, it always seems like there's a spot in a game where Marco starts to fall off the mound a little bit too much towards first base. Navarro will go out there and just remind him, hey, stay in your lanes. Make your momentum come back to the plate here. That'll keep you on line just a little bit and get that arm back up.
Comes back and throws a strike. One and one. The Blue Jays at double play depth. Foul tip. D.D. Gregorius, the number 9 hitter. No matter what happens, this might be the last batter for Estrada. Ellsbury's 2 for 3 with a pair of doubles, and he would be looking at Estrada for the fourth time.
That is exactly what John Gibbons is thinking about right now.
Ripped into the seats, well foul. Isn't it interesting? Here we are on the final day of summer, as summer is over, and it's a 2-2 game, and if you're playing this game in May, it wouldn't be that big a deal. And now you're thinking about, okay, who's going to pitch to the next guy? Who do they have on their bench? How many pitches has he thrown? That's a base hit. Bautista charging hard. Ackley is headed for third. Here's the throw from Bautista. It's offline, and that allows Gregorius to get into second. They're going to have a look at this one. John Gibbons out on the warning track. Bautista uncorked one of the strongest throws he's thrown since April.
Sometimes you have to go for it. And I think that time you had to go for it. I think they want to look at it. Jose, of course, everybody knows he's been battling that sore shoulder. When I say go for it, you overthrow the cutoff man to try and get him there. And that, oh boy.
Boy, what a tag by Donaldson. Watch his glove and how he goes to the base and puts the tag right in the foot of Ackley.
Oh.
This is going to be very interesting. Greg Gibson, the umpire, has perfect position, but he's out.
Yes.
He is out.
You know, it's the tag of Donaldson, like you said, straight down into the bag where the runner slides right into it. That ball is there. It looks like the glove is on the bag. And Ackley slid right into him, and right away Donaldson said, you got to take a look at this one.
Well, he can feel the foot hit his glove before it's on the base. And Bautista, he is very interested, and he knows he got him. The umpires are under the headset. Jim Joyce is the crew chief.
Well, that one shot that we had, it looked like a close-up. And the slow motion certainly looked like he slid right into his glove.
All the umps in the stands think they've got it figured out. It's under review. The call on the field is that Ackley is safe. Another look at the tag. Watch the glove of Donaldson.
This one right here, the close-up, that's on him. That's on him before those spikes hit the dirt.
You've played the infield. They have their decision. Watch the umpires. They're going to put Ellsbury on. This may be an indication they're going to go to Luke to pitch to Gardner.
Well, John Gibbons, he goes by the numbers a lot. And the numbers suggest that Luke might be facing Gardner. Ellsbury versus Luke, 5 for 12 with a home run. That's a .417 average. Gardner versus Luke, not so good.
1 for 10. So the strategy is playing out, and what a throw by Bautista, and what a tag by Donaldson. For Bautista, that's just his third assist. And there's the call for Luke. Give me the sidearm left-hander. It's a 2-2 game. Another terrific start from Marco Estrada. acknowledged by the great crowd here at Rogers Center.
I love how his teammates have gone out there to tell him what a job he did.
Marco Estrada. And Bautista, they teamed up for a terrific play. And watch the effort by Bautista.
Yeah, sometimes, like we were saying, you have to go for it. You overthrow the cutoff man trying to get him, and it's going to pay dividends for him. When they announce the out, Jose is digging it as he picks up his third outfield assist. But he went for it, overthrew the cutoff man, and got the runner at third base.
They acknowledge the Donaldson tag as well. A lot of times the fielder will feel for the base runner. Aaron Loup, 56th appearance. It's a big one against Brett Gardner.
Last work 6 days ago when the Blue Jays were in Atlanta, faced one batter, Freddie Freeman. He ended up walking him.
Checks in on Gregorius. 2 outs. Gregorius single to right. He went to second on the throw. Ellsbury's at first. He was walked intentionally. First pitch strike. Brett Gardner is 3 for his last 34. 0 for 3 tonight. Been a long drought for Aaron Loup. He hasn't pitched an awful lot lately.
Blue Jays need a second left-hander coming out of that bullpen. We have seen Brett Cecil and the job that he did in last night's game, how important that is. And we've been saying it a long time. You get back in the American League East, left-handed specialists, especially all these teams with the big lefties, play a very important role. And this is one of them right here.
Brett Cecil, we mentioned, he's pitched 3 days in a row, and you got to believe he's unavailable. Loup has pitched in now 8 games since coming back from AAA Buffalo. Up the middle, off of Loup. Goins will have no play. He checks on Gregorius. It'll be an infield hit by Gardner. Luke got hit by that ball that carried him to Goins, who kept it on the infield, but Gardner reaches, and the bases are loaded, and what a matchup now. The Yankees have the bases loaded and 2 outs. Alex Rodriguez will come to the plate. He's 0 for 2 with a walk, and Liam Hendricks in to face A-Rod.
Proud partner and official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Liam Hendricks has had a terrific season, pitching out of the bullpen for the Blue Jays, 5-0 with a good ERA.
We saw Liam on this homestand, that final game against the Boston Red Sox. It was through 1/3 of an inning. That was a strikeout against Xander Bogaerts. He's 5-0 with a 252 earned run average. He's got a tough job right now. He comes in with the bases loaded, 2 outs, and he faces the batter with the most grand slams in Major League history.
Alex Rodriguez has 25 career grand slams. He hit with the bases loaded in last night's game in the 3rd inning, and David Price struck him out. Price would then get Brian McCann. Bases loaded, 2 outs in a 2-2 game. There are the numbers. 354 with the bases loaded. Pitching him upstairs with that hard fastball.
Power versus power. Hendricks, there are his numbers of runner in scoring position. He's averaging a strikeout an inning. Power pitcher versus the power hitter.
Strikes out Alex Rodriguez. A nasty slider. The Yankees leave the bases loaded. with the bases loaded, and Liam Hendricks throws 3 pitches and strikes out Alex Rodriguez to leave him loaded.
You can see he was so calm and under control delivering that pitch, but once he struck him out, he's fired up, and so is Marco Estrada, the benefactor of that. Marco's going to end up with a no decision, but that got dicey in the top of the inning.
2-2 ball game. We head to the bottom of the 7th. Blue Jays have just 3 hits. Luis Severino will give way to the bullpen. This is Justin Wilson, who has been as tough as any left-hander this season.
Well, if you think it's just Betances and Miller, you're crazy. Look at these numbers right here. 62 strikeouts and just 19 walks in 55 1/3 innings for Wilson. He's undefeated at 5-0. This is his 69th appearance this season.
Smoke turns around and hammers the first pitch into the seats. Justin Smoke had an RBI single in the 4th. That tied it at 2-2. This is just the 5th appearance for Wilson. This is the 18th game these two teams have played, the 5th time they faced Wilson. Hit hard, fielded by the shortstop. 1 down. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership. What a ball game. What a series. Blue Jays won last night 4-2. It's 2-2 as we play in the 7th. Wilson pitched on Saturday in the Yankees 5-0 win over the Mets. He pitched an inning and a third through 30 pitches. Joe Girardi doesn't like to use his relievers 3 days in a row or 4 out of 5 days.
And he hasn't. He hasn't used anybody 3 days in a row out of that bullpen. They have done a very good job, the Yankees, of moving guys off the roster down to AAA and get some fresh arms here to massage that bullpen. All the innings that they've had to use this year.
Popped up and playable near the mound. Headley, the third baseman, gets there and makes the catch. The Yankees have a lot of younger players in their bullpen with options. So a guy would pitch a game or two, they'd ship him back to the minors, call up another one, and they just kept rotating. It was like they had a taxi squad of relief pitchers.
And use those players who have options back and forth. We saw some 4- and 5-stint players with this team. That might be the way to keep fresh arms in your bullpen. It's almost like having, instead of 7 or 8 guys in your bullpen, it's almost like having 10 or 12 relievers on your roster for the season.
Owens goes after the first pitch, bounces it to second. Justin Wilson comes out of the bullpen and needs just 7 pitches to retire the side in order.
every single night. You can vote for the play of the game, and you're looking at 3 people right now who are all very responsible for a possible play of the game. Fantastic throw by Bautista. What a tag by Josh Donaldson. And how about the strikeout of A-Rod from Liam Hendrickson? Guys, it's still a tie game, so we could still see another play of the game coming up later. Go to sportsnet.ca to vote following today's game.
Chances are you will see the play of the game from this point to the end. Liam Hendricks, what a job he did. And last night, how about the job Brett Cecil did in the 8th inning? Brett Cecil came in and stranded a pair as he struck out Gardner, Rodriguez, and McCann. Meat of the order. He set him down. Hendricks is back out to start the 8th inning. Marcus Stroman will take the mound tomorrow. Make his 3rd start, looking to go 3-0. McCann, Beltran, and Greg Bird. Lefty, switch hitter, lefty. McCann drove in the first Yankee run with a single to right. That was way back in the 1st.
He had one thing on his mind there, didn't he?
He wanted to leave. Got a fastball, but Hendricks blew it by him. It's a hard slider. The season is winding down, and Joe Girardi's Yankees are running out of time. 3.5 games back of the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are 41-18 since the All-Star break, best in baseball. They won last night 4-2. In the air, Donaldson in left field is there.
The all-new 2016 Honda Pilot, proud partner and official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Carlos Beltran had a sac fly. He's singled and grounded out. And he's a dangerous hitter in these situations.
He is so clutch. Very quick. You try to slip fastballs by him, and he's able to just drop that bat on the ball. He's hit 16 home runs this season.
Swinging a drive to right. Bautista's at the wall, at the track. Beltran's done it again. He has given the Yankees the lead with his 17th home run of the season. He hit a big 3-run pinch hit home run here earlier this season to beat the Blue Jays.
It was the same type of pitch and the same type of swing. He's so quick. You think you can throw that fastball by him. You got to keep it up, or you got to keep it away from him where he's got to reach for it. When it's in or down and in, he is so quick. Watch how short this swing is. They wanted that ball away, and it's down the middle, and he comes up with another big hit.
Beltran hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball from Noah Syndergaard on Saturday for a 3-run home run.
Not a lot of movement. That's just using your hands right there. They've been successful keeping the ball away from them. And that will probably get Dylan Betances up.
As soon as that ball went into the seats, Betances grabbed his glove. He's throwing now. This is Greg Bird. The rookie has doubled in 3 at-bats. Beltran had a terrific month of August. He finally identified some mechanical flaws in his approach. He's a terrific student of hitting. It felt like he wasn't using his lower half to free up his hands.
Get him started. There's the big right-hander now getting loose. The guy at the plate for the Yankees reminds me a little bit of Carlos Beltran, how quiet he is. And not a lot of extra movement in that swing.
Beltran and Alex Rodriguez have both taken Greg Bird under their wings, passing on a lot of information about approach, preparation. 2-2 pitch. Just missed. Strikes out for a second time. 2 down. Chase Headley, the third baseman, switch hitter, batting left-handed. Headley's got 11 home runs for the season. Drew Hutchison up for a second time tonight. But well upstairs.
Reaching back for a little something extra right there, trying to end this inning.
There's the strikeout, the tag, and Headley's retired, but the Yanks have taken the lead. Carlos Beltran with his 15th career home run against the Blue Jays. Now it's time for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zong. The Pilot, proud partner and official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Kevin Pillar steps to the plate in the third inning. He's going to turn around this fastball in the inner half from Luis Severino. Pulls the hands in, drills that ball down the line for a home run, his 11th of the season. And tonight, It was the Blue Jays' first run, and it's our drive of the game.
So Pilar will lead things off. He's homered and walked, and he'll face the big right-hander Dylan Betances, making his 68th appearance of the season.
The New York Yankees bullpen lead everybody in strikeouts. The relievers lead the majors with 553 strikeouts. This guy's at the head of the class, 120 of them this season. A couple other changes. Brendan Ryan is going to play second base, and Chris Young comes in to take over in right field. But Betances, fastball, wicked curve. That's how he gets a lot of those strikeouts.
Betances pitching against the Blue Jays for the 7th time this season. He has 9 strikeouts in 6 1/3 innings against the Jays. There's a little looper that's going to drop over Brendan Ryan into right. Pilar is aboard. Ryan appeared to get his glove on it. Just went off the fingertips of his glove and dropped safely into right.
It was that nasty curveball right there. Right off the end of the bat. Brendan Ryan's an excellent fielder. He breaks back, just reaches his hand out there, hoping that that ball will go in his glove, and it just ticked right off of his glove. So now after the base hit, Kawasaki is going to come up and hit for himself, and everybody in the ballpark knows he's going to be bunting.
Kawasaki squares to bunt, drops down a bunt to Betances. He'll go to first and almost threw it in the dirt. So Munenori Kawasaki does his job. He gets Pilar in the scoring position. No one is as well prepared as Kawasaki.
You get here 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the afternoon for a home game. He's out there getting ready, doing everything he can to help the team win. This time executes that sacrifice bunt perfectly. There's the throw over to first base, and you're right, dug out of there by Brendan Ryan.
Revere doesn't swing at the first pitch often, but he will when there's a runner in scoring position, and you got to check swing and foul.
Plus, when you're facing somebody like Betances, this might be the best pitch that you see. First pitch fastball, he had a check swing.
Betances has allowed 15 stolen bases. Pilar had a stolen base in the 5th. Oh, 0-2, fouled off the plate.
Well, he's so long. I mean, he's 6'8", Betances, and he doesn't worry about the runners when they're on base. There usually isn't a lot of base runners when he's on. He's got that high leg kick. Just don't know if they would risk a stolen base attempt right here.
Betances with another strikeout. 121.
Josh Donaldson.
Josh Donaldson 0 for 2 with a walk. Donaldson was hitting off the breaking ball machine earlier this afternoon. He's going to get a breaking ball.
He's going to get a breaking ball. Probably early in the count, something off speed. There's another one.
goes Pilar. Inside. Donaldson takes a fastball inside. Now Bautista will step to the plate.
Right fielder number 19, Jose Bautista.
Quick meeting on the mound. Brendan Ryan came in to talk with Betances and McCann. He passes on the information to Gregorius. Had success against Betances. He's 3 for 7 with a home run.
And that home run came the last time he faced him. If you remember that at Yankee Stadium, fastball to dead center field. On that fastball. Kevin Pilar, while ball 4 was happening to Josh Donaldson, took third base. So now he is a wild pitch away from tying up this ball game. Heads up move by Pilar.
Two balls and a strike. Betances will overcook that breaking ball from time to time and bounce it in the dirt. Kawasaki with the sacrifice bunt after the Pilar single. The pitching coach out to try to help out his big right-hander get out of this mess. Betances single, sacrifice bunt, strikeout, and back-to-back walks.
Designated hitter number 10, Edwin Encarnacion.
Encarnacion bats with the bases loaded. He has 9 career grand slams, 3 this season. Ball 1. Ball 99 for a strike. It's 2 balls and a strike to Double E.
He fell behind. Now he has a couple fastballs. Now he can either go back to the fastball or that big hook. Edwin had the home run cut. Just a little tardy.
Betances strikes out Encarnacion. 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. The Blue Jays leave the bases loaded. We'll go to the 9th. The Yankees have a 3-2 lead.
Purchase today and receive the opportunity to buy 2015 Blue Jays postseason tickets. Now, the inventory is extremely limited, and the offer will expire Wednesday, tomorrow, September 23rd at 5 o'clock Eastern. So if you want to get on board with this fantastic deal, go to BlueJays.com/season tickets before it is too late. Buck?
Thank you very much, Mary Davis. We have made it to the 9th. This will be the first career relief appearance for Drew Hutchison. He's made 70 starts. This will be the first time he's pitched onto the bullpen.
And the first time he's going to pitch since September the 9th. That was that start when they were in Boston. Hutchison, 27 starts. He's 13-4 with a .533 earned run average. Here are the rest of his peripherals. Righties are hitting .326, lefties .258 against Hutch this season. So he will come out of the bullpen. He's got one job right here. You need a 0.
He'll deal with Chris Young, who came in the game defensively in right field. Young is batting in the 8th spot. Then Didi Gregorius back to the top of the order, and Jacoby Ellsbury. Remember the bullpen for the Blue Jays. Brett Cecil not available after working 3 straight. Hutchison throws a first pitch breaking ball to Young. Pulled foul outside of third. The Blue Jays have been held to 2 runs on 4 hits. The Yankees have 3 runs on 8 hits in the big blow in the ball game. The Carlos Beltran 1-out home run in the 8th off Liam Hendricks. The home run for Beltran, the 3rd of the season against the Blue Jays. We mentioned his pinch hit 3-run home run off Aaron Sanchez earlier here at Rogers Center.
Hutch has had his moments against the Yankees. Remember the last time we were here, that home run you were talking about helped the Yankees win the first 2 games of that 3-game series. It was Drew Hutchison then on the last day pitched a gem. against the Yankees to avoid the sweep. He has had success against New York.
He's 5-4 in 9 career starts against the Yankees,
with a very good earned run average, 378, and they've only hit 224 against him.
And he walks the leadoff man, Chris Young. So Young's at first, and he can run a bit. He's got 3 steals and 4 attempts. Pete Walker going to get somebody else throwing down in the Blue Jays pen.
Yankees looking for an add-on run. You got to figure Gregorius is going to sacrifice.
Squares to bunt, bunts it into the seats. Ryan Tepera loosening up.
You know, Buck, that bunt attempt right there by Gregorius, it almost looked like he was trying to bunt the ball over the head of Josh Donaldson. Josh is playing in at third base, and he came charging hard. And it almost looked like he tried to bunt it over his head.
Gregorius has 3 sacrifice bunts this season. Bunts this one foul, and Donaldson will field it in foul ground. 0-2. Yankees trying to add to their lead here in the 9th. They lead it 3-2. They scored 2 in the first. Blue Jays tied it up. Had a single run in the 3rd and a single run in the 4th, and the Beltran home run came in the 8th. One and 2. Chris Young looked a little antsy, like he was going to run.
You can guess on this point right here. 2 strikes, you might get a breaking ball. And because they were successful in getting the bunt down, maybe they're going to try and steal their way into scoring position.
Not running. 2-2. Aaron Luke faced 1 batter. Liam Hendricks pitched an inning in a 3rd. Struck out 3. But Hendricks is on the hook now as he gave up the home run to Beltran. Fly ball deep to center. Pilar is not going to get this one. It bounces off the wall out of play, and Young will have to stop at third base on the ground rule double by Didi Gregorius. His 22nd double of the season, his 2nd hit of the night.
John Gibbons up on that top step. Looks like he might make a pitching change.
Ryan Tepera just now getting up, and Gibbons is going to come out, and he's got Tepera, who's had ample time to get loose. Nobody out. We're in the top of the 9th. The Yankees have runners at 2nd and 3rd. Jacoby Ellsbury. 2 doubles tonight. Hutchison will hand things off to the bullpen. Ryan Tepera coming in to face Ellsbury. 2 on, nobody out.
As you covered. Keep up to speed with everything Blue Jays. Don't miss a pitch with our in-depth live game tracker. Plus, the latest news, videos, and interviews on Canada's team. Download the new Sportsnet app today. Bye.
Thank you very much, Barry Davis. Drew Hutchison walked Chris Young, gave up a double to Didi Gregorius. He is out of the ball game. Ryan Tepera inherits a tough situation, second and third, nobody out.
And the top of the lineup coming up, lefties. He has handled those. He's done a good job against the lefties. 109 in 27 games this year. The infield's probably going to have to come in. Tepera has shown very good control. He's only walked 4 batters in 29 in the 3rd inning this year. Fastball, he's got a little split change and a cutter. If he can get that cutter in and maybe jam some of these lefties, that'll keep the ball in the infield.
Jacoby Ellsbury, 2 for 3 with a walk. He was walked intentionally in the 7th. There's a fly ball to right. Young tagging. Bautista setting up. Here's the throw to the plate. It is in time. Another terrific throw by Bautista. Navarro just decoyed Chris Young, and Bautista threw his 2nd strike of the night.
Last time Jose uncorked a strike like that, we said there are times where you have to go for it, and that's another time. You're down by a run, you can't afford to give up any more runs, so you get behind the ball. This is a cutter, and it is not hit too terribly deep. Bautista does everything right. You see his momentum coming up. You overthrow the cutoff man. You got to get that ball on the fly to the plate. And Navarro does a good job of just standing there thinking like there's not a play. Then he puts the tag on it. A huge double play for the Blue Jays.
Brett Gardner with Gregorius at 3rd.
One more time, the tag. He goes up, catches it, throws the tag down.
Another terrific play by the Blue Jays defensively. Two 2-0. Brett Gardner with Alex Rodriguez on deck. We got some room to work with Gardner. Good block by Navarro. A textbook block as Navarro just went to his knees and plugged up the 5-hole.
Didn't try to catch the ball. Textbook because it was all about just blocking the ball. Throw the body in front of it. Stay nice and loose and stay over the ball.
Three and 0 now. Gardner takes ball 4. Anis Rodriguez, he is 0 for 3 with a walk. One for 7 in the series with 4 strikeouts. One ball, no strikes, 2 outs. Ryan Tepera trying to keep it a 1-run game.
With that fastball. Tepera had a good season when he was down in the minor leagues with Buffalo. They just recalled him on September the 1st. 21 outings with the Bisons, a 106 earned run average.
He's got enough fastball to handle Rodriguez. Play. It's 2 balls and 2 strikes. Andrew Miller, 34 for 35 in save opportunities. Center. Pilar's got plenty of room. What a job by Tepera. He gets some help from his right fielder, Jose Bautista. For the 6th time in his career, has 2 outfield assists in the same game. He nails Chris Young after plate to keep it a 3-2 ball game. Throws a perfect strike to Deanna Navarro for the double play. 135 in save opportunities. And it is a one-run game.
And he has racked up a few strikeouts along the way. 89 of them. That's fourth best among relievers to just 16 walks. See that 14.48 strikeouts per 9 innings? That is an AL best right there. He's got a very good fastball and a wicked wipeout slider that he's going to get a lot of strikeouts with.
The Blue Jays are 13 and 27 in one-run games. Justin Smoke 1 for 3. There's that breaking ball. And 2.
I have looked at a few of his last saves. He doesn't throw any pitches anymore. Doesn't get anybody. He just throws strike after strike after strike. Spent some time on the disabled list, so it's taken him a little bit of time to get back, but he has been hot lately.
Fastball missed. Miller was drafted as a starter by the Detroit Tigers, but has he found a home as a closer? This is his first season as a full-time closer. Two. Smoke strikes out. Now for a preview of what's coming up on Sportsnet Central, here's Ken Reed and Ivanka Osman. Thank you very much, Ken. That's all coming up right after this ball game. Miller is 3 for 3 in save opportunities against the Blue Jays this season. Got it! Oh, deep drive and gone! Surrendered this season.
Magical. Magical. He took Rich Hill deep the other day against the Boston Red Sox on the same type of pitch. First pitch, high fastball. He hit it in almost the exact same spot.
Chris Colabello batting for Ryan Goins.
High fastball. Yanner is not waiting around. Right down the line. There was no doubt about it. He's just trying to beg that thing to stay fair. Once he sees it clears the fence, he can get into that home run trot.
The first home run Miller has allowed to the Blue Jays, the fourth he's allowed this season. Colabello takes strike 2.
When you're sitting on the bench and you see it, Everybody's up to the post to take a look at him.
The second blown save for Andrew Miller. Colomelo called out on the breaking ball.
How big is that play by Jose Bautista in the top of the inning now?
He completed the 9-2 double play through a strike to nail Chris Young at home plate to keep it a one-run game.
Giving the Blue Jays a chance to tie it and maybe win it now.
Kevin Pillar has had a perfect night. Home run, walk, and single. He's also picked up 2 stolen bases. Off the plate inside, and everybody knows that Andrew Miller doesn't need any help.
He doesn't need any help. There's Russell Martin, who's come out on deck.
Pillar hanging tough. The Blue Jays left the bases loaded against Dylan Betances in the 8th. This is one of the rare times this season the Blue Jays have faced Wilson, Betances, and Miller in the same game, and they've tied it up. Mark Lowe ready in the pen. Line fair ball. Pillar's going to turn around first, and he'll get the second. Kevin Pillar drops one inside the line. Kevin Pillar, his 3rd hit of the night. He's been on base all 4 times.
2 of the toughest relievers in all of baseball. Pillar's 2 for 2. And didn't hit this one very hard, but he put it in a good spot. He singled off of Betances last time up, and now he just drops this ball inside out down the right field line for extra bases. And Pillar is carrying the winning run now.
John Gibbons had Russell Martin out on deck, and when Pillar hit the double, he switched gears, called Martin back, and he has called upon Matt Haig. Martin still with his batting helmet on, but he is taking a step back into the dugout. Matt Haig walked as a pinch hitter in last night's game. Now it looks like they're going to put him on
and face Revere, and maybe that's why Martin hasn't taken his helmet off.
That's right. They switched gears, put Haig up there. They would have walked Martin in this same situation. So Ben Revere is on deck. Martin looks like he's going to hit for him, and he will. Russell's going to bat for Ben Revere after the 4th ball to Haig.
Boy, that's being in the game right there. If it was a single, Martin hits. But because it's a double and that base was open, they pull Martin back.
Batting for the left fielder, Denver here, number 55, Russell Martin.
Russell Martin has had 7 walk-off hits. Takes the first pitch down. You can't ask for anything more.
This is what it's all about. There are the numbers. How about the RBIs? 15 of them. Does he have another one in him?
He leads the Blue Jays against the Yankees this season. Breaking ball. 2-1. Strike. Josh Donaldson is on deck.
Might have been ball 4. But now, with the count 3-2, 2 outs, the runners will be off. And if you get it 3-1, you might get it 3-2 here. That slider.
Three and 2. Pilar from second. Haig from first. They'll be off on the pitch. Bases are loaded. And who's coming to the plate? Josh Donaldson.
Jays third baseman number 20, Josh Donaldson.
Josh Donaldson has had 10 walk-off hits. He's had 3 this season. 2 home runs and an RBI single.
That's what you're going to get right there. Steady diet, that breaking ball.
Down to Jim Reynolds. 1-2. Fastball away. Donaldson strikes out. The Blue Jays leave the bases loaded for a second consecutive inning. But with one out, Deanna Navarro comes up big. A first pitch home run. That ties it at 3-3 for Navarro, his 5th of the season. None bigger than this one in the 9th. Bautista has done that tonight with 2 terrific throws.
We usually talk about the bat, but tonight we got to talk about the arm. He airmails that ball to third base against Ackley. That was a huge out. And then just last inning, second and third, nobody out. They try to score on that fly ball. It ends up being a double play. They throw up a 0 thanks to Jose Bautista and have a chance to win it now in extra innings. Jose usually comes through with the bat. Tonight it's been his arm.
For the 6th time in his career, he had 2 assists in a game. New pitcher into the ball game is Mark Lowe, his 54th appearance of the season. It's a 3-3 game as we go to the 10th.
Darwin Barney is in the game. He is going to play second base.
McCann bunts it. Donaldson bare hands throws, and it's wide of first. McCann's aboard. A bunt single to start the inning. Brian McCann did a terrific job of bunting this ball up the third baseline. Just squared it, bunted it.
And Josh was in and had a chance if that throw was on line. McCann will do that in these types of situations. Donaldson was expecting it. Throws the ball over to first base. It's offline, so it'll be an infield hit. Their 10th. And that's Rico Noel.
Noel's the pinch runner at first for McCann. Pinch hitting at home for Brendan Ryan will be Slade Heathcote. Cliff Pennington is into the game defensively, playing short. Ezequiel Carrera takes over in left field as Revere was lifted for the pinch hitter. Slade Heathcote. Rico Noel, we saw him as a pinch runner in the Yankees series.
He can fly. Heathcote came up with a big home run for the Yankees when they were down in Tampa Bay. So he will pinch hit for Ryan.
Noel had a stolen base as a pinch runner in the 10th inning of Game 1 of that doubleheader in New York. That was on Saturday the 12th. He ran for Brian McCann after McCann had singled with 2 outs and stole second. That was in a 5-5 game. The Blue Jays would eventually win that one 9-5. Brian McCann with a perfect bunt to lead off the inning. There goes the runner, fouled out of play by Heathcote, and catcher's interference. Navarro, in an effort to get to that ball and make the throw, interfered with the hitter's swing. And Heathcote will go to first on catcher's interference.
One more time. Fastball. And the home plate umpire was right on top of that one. You can see it just clips the glove of Navarro.
Just barely got the webbing of it. You could see he's just saying, man, ever so close. But Navarro, much like Russell Martin, has been great at shifting before he catches that ball, but that time he got a little over anxious. Nobody out. Greg Bird. First pitch strike. Navarro was charged with an error on catcher's interference. 0-2. Way outside. Blue Jays haven't turned a double play tonight. They've been pretty consistent in their ability to turn two, and turn one last night in the first game of this series.
They could use that or a strikeout right here. He was going for it. They have been using Mark Lowe a lot. He has really come through for him. Got the night off yesterday.
Steve Delabar starting to loosen up. This is the third extra inning game these two teams have played. The Blue Jays won on August 7th in New York. Bautista hit a home run on Brandon Pinder in the 10th to win that one. And then they won game one of the doubleheader on the 12th of September in 11th. Swinging a drive deep to right. Bautista is going to watch this one sail over the wall. Greg Bird with his second home run of the series gives the Yankees a 6-3 lead with a 3-run home run.
Boy, this guy's going to be some kind of hitter. If he isn't already, just 22 years old. That's 13 out of his last 17 hits have been extra base hits. He doubled his first time up. And it looked like some kind of off-speed pitch that was down. He just went down and got it and hit a line drive into their bullpen. Yeah, a little slider down. Now he goes down and gets it.
10 home runs now for Bird. He has 10 home runs in 121 at bats. Three RBIs give him 28 for the season. This is his 34th big league game. Oh, 0-2 to Chase Headley. Ball in the dirt. Greg Bird, look where he is in the major league leaders in home runs in September. Harper of the Nats, Arenado of the Rockies, Cespedes of the Mets, and there's Bird and Davis tied with 8.
Up there with the big boys. None bigger than that one right there.
He's got a great swing. The home run he hit to center field last night was a line drive off the facing of the second deck. Darwin Barney out in shallow right, throws to first. That's the first out of the inning. And John Gibbons has popped out of the Blue Jays dugout. Brian McCann started the inning with a bunt single. Then the pinch hitter Slade Heathcott reached on catcher's interference. And then Greg Bird hit a 3-run home run off Mark Lowe. Steve Delabar in with 1 out. Delabar into the ballgame. He has not pitched since the 12th of September. He pitched in Game 2 of that Saturday doubleheader against the Yankees. He is in here with 1 out and nobody on.
He finished up the season with Buffalo. He was 3-1 in Buffalo at a 124 earned run average. He hasn't pitched that well since he has been back with the Blue Jays. Last 8 outings with Toronto has allowed 11 earned runs. And it has been a while. It's been 10 days since the last time Steve's been on the mound.
You talk about a roller coaster of emotions. The Blue Jays tied it up with a 1-out home run in the 9th, and now they give the lead right back. First 3 reach cashed in by Bird, a 3-run home run. Chris Young checks his swing.
P.D. Gregorius on the on-deck circle almost got plunked.
They saw that last night with Josh Donaldson on the other side of the diamond. On deck, batters like to get a good look at the pitchers so they'll get in there as close as possible. Sometimes they get too close.
Yeah, you better keep one eye on that batter.
Oh, and 2. Delmar ahead of Chris Young. This is popped up. Navarro will give it a look over near the Yankees dugout, and it's off the top step. Navarro went to that padding, and he had a little more room had he gone a little bit further to his left. It hit right on the top step of the dugout.
Yeah, if he could have gone around the camera that's down there, situated down there, he had a shot at it. So Young will stay alive.
One and 2 now. Fly ball to the left. Carrera out there defensively makes the catch. Delmar with 2 outs here in the 10th.
When you talk about the roller coaster of emotions for the Blue Jays tonight, it has been down and up and down and up. Right now, they're going to have to fight back one more time.
The Blue Jays fell behind early. Marco Estrada gave up 2 runs on 3 hits in the first. They would eventually tie it up in the 4-2-2. Yankees took a lead in the 8th, and the Blue Jays tied it up in the bottom of the 9th. Bautista's made 2 terrific throws tonight. He gunned down Dustin Ackley at third base in the 7th, and then he completed a double play to nail the runner at the plate, Chris Young, on a 9-2 double play.
And he gets the lead off next inning.
Yeah, don't go away just yet. It'll be Bautista, Encarnacion, and Smoke for the Blue Jays in the bottom of the 10th.
Andrew Miller threw 28 pitches in that inning. And they don't have anybody warming up right now. I wonder if they're going to bring him back out.
It certainly looks like they're going to bring him back out. Nobody is warming up. Andrew Miller has pitched 2 innings on 2 occasions, including in that doubleheader in New York. He threw 2 innings against the Blue Jays. That's the last time he pitched 2 innings. He threw a total of 26 pitches. So he is accustomed to it. He's had 6 appearances over 1 inning this season. There's a base hit for Gregorius. His 3rd hit in a row.
What a nice little night he has had very quietly. Fastball away. Watch how he just goes down and gets it. It's a 2-strike approach right there.
What a player he has become as the season has unfolded. He got off to a slow start, but he's picked it up in the field and at the plate. Jacoby Ellsbury. He hit that fly ball to Bautista in the 9th. Looked like it was going to be an insurance run for the Yankees to make it 4-2. But Bautista threw a strike to Navarro as he gunned down Chris Young trying to score from 3rd. Ellsbury lifts a fly ball. Long run for Carrera. He's going to get there and makes the catch. Delmar gets out of the inning, gives up a single and nothing more. The Yankees have taken a 6-3 lead. But Jose Bautista will lead things off. Then Edwin Encarnacion, Justin Smoke, middle of the order for the Jays. Tomorrow. Angels and Astros tomorrow. It all starts at 2 Eastern, 1:11 Pacific. And Kelowna, BC fans can see that game. It starts at 11 their time. But we got more baseball here. We're for the bottom of the 10th, and the Blue Jays have the big boys coming up. They trail by 3, and the rally caps are out. Bautista has walked twice. He obviously knows they need some base runners.
Need some base runners. So he can't go up there hacking away.
One and one. That's a nasty slider. Most left-handers throw you that breaking ball and you say, okay, well, as a right-hander, it's coming into me. It's not a big deal, but his is so big and so late breaking.
From that center field camera, it looks like it's way outside.
Bouncing ball. Stephen Drew into the ball game at second, makes the play.
And then sweeps across the plate. So the angle of that ball coming across the plate is sideways. Just nasty to try and square it up. One more time. This is a fastball away. You can see Drew, the second baseman, playing up the middle to finish off the first out.
Edwin Encarnacion has gone 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts.
You think that ball is way outside and it just keeps coming.
Yeah, you want to give up on it because it's so far away from being a strike, and then it breaks
you just can't,
over.
Just can't give up on it.
There's a long drive to left. This one's gone, number 35 for Double E. Miller touched up for 2 home runs. That gives the Blue Jays a trio of 35-plus homer, 100 RBI guys, just for the second time in franchise history.
Amazing. wanted that fastball away. It crept to the middle of the plate, and Edwin, he doesn't miss too many fastballs on the inner half.
6-4 ball game. Third Blue Jays home run of the night. The Yankees have hit 2.
That's a 4-seam fastball. Right where Edwin likes it, down and in.
Smoke fouls it up. The catcher is John Ryan Murphy. Take another look at this beautiful swing.
Thing of beauty.
Oh, and 2. Andrew Miller, for the first time in his career, has given up 2 home runs as a relief pitcher in the same game. Navarro took him deep with 1 out in the 9th to tie it up. Encarnacion's 1 out home run here in the 10th. Smoke foul tips it into the catcher's glove. The Blue Jays down to their final out.
Catcher number 30,
Gianni Navarro, he tied it up in the 9th. He was charged with catcher's interference in the 10th when he made contact with the bat of Slade Heathcote, the pinch hitter. That allowed Heathcote to reach base, and it was first and second for Greg Bird, who had a 3-run home run.
Boy, the first 2 games in this series have been a lot of fun, haven't they?
They will wear you out, won't they, these 2 teams?
Back and forth, like 2 heavyweight fighters going toe-to-toe. And we get another one tomorrow.
Tomorrow's pitching matchup, Marcus Stroman will go to the mound for the Blue Jays. It'll be posed by Ivan Nova. Nova filling in for Masahiro Tanaka, who is scheduled to start. Fly ball into center. This should do it. Ellsbury is there, and the Yankees win it. The Yankees win 6-4 in 10 innings. Andrew Miller gets a blown save and a win in the same game. Greg Bird, what a young player.
Yeah, he had a home run in last night's game. He had the big blow tonight, the big 3-run home run. That was the difference in this game. And the Yankees even this series and pulled a 2.5 games. The rubber match tomorrow.
It's a 2.5 game margin for the Blue Jays. They will tee it up for the final time tomorrow. Marcus Stroman goes against Ivan Nova. Stay tuned. Here's Sportsnet Central. Ken Reed and Ivanka Osman. See you tomorrow.